Good. I think Brendan's jumping in a second here.
Awesome.
Okay, here's the problem. I'm
Uh-huh.
on not on my computer.
It wouldn't work on your computer?
Well, I don't know. It didn't come through on my computer.
Oh,
I'm going away. Oh, give me a second.
all right. If you leave, I can re-invite you.
Well, that's what. Yeah, I'm gonna get on my.
That's what happened to me last time. I got stuck on my phone the whole time.
Hold on. Am I in this video call? All right, I gotta hang up.
Okay.
Okay, just call back.
Yeah, I'll add you here in a second. Brendan. Works. So, Rob, you were at Stevenson?
Yep. Played at Stevenson and then started here at Misericordia as a graduate assistant, and then they elevated me to full time for both positions with the start of the men.
Well,
Nice.
work.
Yeah, I think we must have met because I lived in Owings Mills actually, and I helped out Gross Nickel for like 2 days.
Yeah, we probably crossed paths at some point then.
Yeah.
So basically, he didn't do anything.
Yeah, your practice was so late. I taught at Newtown High School, and he was like, "You want me to keep coming?" I'm like, "Be a guy." I wouldn't get home till 1 in the morning. Like, I can't, I can't do this.
It was insane too because like even when we were in preseason and all we would have is obviously the volleyball slate. Steve was still working his 9 to 5, so our preseasons would be like a 7 to 11 session. We
Yeah,
had to actually petition with the school to open food services later.
jeez. Yeah, that's rough. I mean, even for a college student, that's crazy.
Yeah, we were doing some crazy days. There was one time we had an 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. practice, and that was something.
I think that was where I stopped helping. I started helping with. I started helping with Towson for that was a little bit more manageable because they practiced at like 4 p.m. like normal humans.
Yeah, like a normal time when you would want to be up and more functioning.
Yeah. But they have like 11 courts on campus, so
yeah.
Just keep talking and making sure it's recording.
Oh, okay. And then this is a backup too, so.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, it's easier.
I think it's
all kind of one place.
Well, yeah, we're gonna have to do the previews again.
Okay, it's not working.
Well, it's not that it's not working. They just kind of suck.
It's kind of boring.
Well, yeah, and Eric gets a little feisty on the last one.
Yeah, just being super condescending towards other people, towards certain teams.
What happens when you go to Vassar?
Yeah, he's a little elitist. Cool. But yeah, we'll rework those at some point. We have notes already, so won't be that hard.
Yeah, and I'm just going to reinsert a standard opening to all of them.
Okay, that's a good idea.
So
yeah, Christmas break. I mean, what are we doing? I mean, if you want to do one Saturday, I could.
No, I'm in Chicago at a tournament.
Okay.
Next week is finals week, so I'm good. Except for Wednesday.
I'm not totally sure what's going on with my kids at school, if they have midterms and whatnot, but yeah, I should probably figure that all out if I have to write a test or something like that.
How much you want to be, Rob?
What's up?
Is that how much you want to be on this?
I'm excited for it. It's going to be cool. Like I said, anything to help out the volleyball community is always a step in the right direction.
Yeah, but how often do you be on it? That's the question. What happened to my Hangouts thing?
Yeah, once we get in the season, it should probably like once a week. Even that should be easier because there's games to talk about. I feel like and just kind of talk about things. I mean, what you want it to be the length of like a commute, right? It's like 20, 25 minutes.
I think it's half an hour to 40.
Is that what we want?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So I wrote some things down, but really just kind of talking points if we get stuck. But I'll even type them out here in the chat. I said, like, why should different schools add more men's volleyball? So like different categories, like the super, I was thinking like like NYU level schools, like they're clearly going to do pretty well. Like those kind of like high end schools are going to be able to draw people in. And then also like cheaper schools, like just different options of like what you guys think of different categories we could kind of put into who should be adding and what, like if there's examples you can think of around the country, kind of ups and downs of it. And we can just have a back and forth with it just to be a little more engaging than listing off pre-read things.
It's the who should versus who's going to.
Good question. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
You kind of cut in and out for me, like some stuff you say comes through really clearly, and then there'll be a dip, and then it'll come back through again.
Damn it.
Yeah. You start off slow.
Wonderful.
One who should add versus who will add.
So we don't know who's gonna add.
You probably know better than I do at this point who's going to add.
Brendan, do you know who this next D1 is that they keep touting?
I mean, if I tell you, you're not allowed to tell anybody else.
Yeah, because, I'm out here telling. So I'm barely involved in the D1 stuff. I'm just saying out of curiosity.
LIU, Brooklyn.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So they're just trying to get everything figured out.
Well, LIU is actually much better off than St. Francis right now. I mean, that's a whole story, but the EIVA commissioner's kid plays for my club, so I hear all about everything.
That'll do it.
Yeah. How close? I wonder, am I too high in the level here? Rob, talk again.
Yeah, that's exciting that we've got more Long Island stuff coming, especially at the Division I level.
All right. That was good. I'm just trying to make sure it's just not too high of a. I have a mic. It's just like I don't have a very large stand to go with it. I'm just trying to hold it where it needs to be. All right.
I had an interesting idea for a topic. I was thinking of, I mean, clearly we don't want this to go this far, but what would be? So I guess the question is like, what would the world look like if like men's volleyball got equaled out to women's volleyball? Now, we don't want to go that far, but essentially, when would be a good stopping point? Like, what should be a good, what would be a good point for men's volleyball teams to kind of not oversaturate, at least in the foreseeable future?
The thing that always strikes me in that category is I kind of think about how field hockey is so big on the East Coast, but kind of hasn't caught everywhere. Mm-hmm. The reason it works well for where it does is because it has the support and the development of that area. So if every school, like you said, started men's volleyball at the collegiate level, there wouldn't be a high school and club talent pool to be able to fill it out. So if you end up getting into that, 180, 200 kind of range for Division III, where the tournament now looks like 32 instead of 16, but the high school and the club scene can grow at the same pace, that's always struck me as something that would be nice because it would flesh out a first round, second round, Final Four kind of thing in terms of the tournament setup too.
Yeah, I mean, Christina, from Mount St. Joe's basically said it. When we're looking at a kid who's sub 6 feet to be a middle, then we know we have a problem.
Yeah, for a real team.
Well, for anybody, I mean, even not a real team.
It happens all the time.
Well, we're pulling kids off the street playing middle for us right now.
That sounds fun.
He hit 400 at Stevens this weekend, so I can't complain too much. He picked it up pretty quick.
Wonderful.
Slowly but surely.
Be nice.
I'll put that. Like, what would the ideal situation look like for men's volleyball as far as if we could just kind of pick this team adds, this team adds, this team adds, or whatever it is. What would we think that would be like?
Yeah, I mean, the focus D1 though. We need to keep it focused on D3.
I was gonna say, how do you want?
Should we
be saying
D3,
Texas or just
D3?
Division III schools. So the big ones that you'd want would the one that always comes to mind for me would be an RIT, like another engineering school to come in and compete with Stevens Tech, with Wentworth, with MSOE, right in the heart where there's such a high level of volleyball in the Rochester area, or even a U of R, if you want to focus on that, another high academic who would be in NYU's Division III conference and be able to provide a similar academic reputation to some of the big schools while not being completely removed from an area where volleyball is big and important.
Yeah, see, I go the other way with that, though. I think because I would go along the lines of the Cal-Lu and just pull the rest of the California conference. Grab Claremont, grab Pomona Fitzer. Those are two hugely high academic schools. They always produce champions, and they're all in Southern California.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm right down the street from, actually applied to U of R today. Probably in New York, I would say state schools would be a better choice, really, for who should. I think that'd be a better situation. U of R would be great, but I think it'd be a weird mix of having 3 D3 teams within 5 miles of each other. Yes, there is a lot of players up here, but there aren't that many players. You
probably need like a reach.
What was that?
I missed all of what you said.
You probably need like a DePauw or a Case Western. It's got a further reach, and they're highest academic level, like on par with Stevens.
Yeah, I would say if it's like a New York school, it's a high end. I would say RIT is probably the one. I think they're unique enough. They'll pull people from everywhere.
Ideally, you probably need the UAA, but
yeah,
I just don't see it happening.
Well, yeah, because it's just NYU from that group right now, and then the other really fun discussion would be if the NESCACs jumped in and were able to pull some of those high academic kids out east for the educational and athletic experience the way they're able to do for soccer, lacrosse, in different ways, even though volleyball isn't traditionally a powerhouse sport in that region.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even if they made their own like D3 Ivy League type thing, like where like an NYU Vassar like kind of jumped off and like added like RIT and maybe even Stevens, like whatever it is, like jumped off, that would be kind of a cool idea.
I'm sure MIT would love the chance to not have to travel as much as they do and be able to play Tufts, Williams, and those schools right in their backyard if they could get an associate membership too. Yeah.
I'm sure they would. That would be that would be a cool idea as well for teams to be adding.
The problem is, Stevens can't go anywhere since they're in the MAC now, so it doesn't really matter.
We're welcoming them with open arms to win all of our conference titles for the foreseeable 50 years. Peace out to Landon. Stevens, come on over.
Yeah, right. That's
acceptable for 10 minutes.
Well, to be fair, now Eastern's not going to win every title on the Freedom side, so
yeah, it'll balance out the women and it'll just pigeonhole the men for the rest of time.
Well, Eastern would have been better off if they got off to a better start.
Mark's kind of excited because now if they happen to not win a conference title, it's not like they're losing to a soft school. Like Stevens at least been in the discussion, and I had them ranked for a better part of the early year before they fell off. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
I just meant on Randy's from Randy's end and not getting.
Yeah, he's struggling a lot.
Yeah, I know. I saw him last weekend. Where the hell were you, by the way?
We had our play date at Stevens, so we were playing. They ran a late non-trad.
Yeah, you didn't miss anything, trust me.
I was surprised when I saw that first cap was in the final. I was like, rough look, considering that's a high school team.
Yeah. So, all right, you ready to go?
Yeah, let's do it. So we're gonna run through. If we run through those, I think that should get us a good amount of time.
Yeah.
Who wants to kick it off? Do you want me to, or do I do you two, or?
Give me a second. Trying to create some separation. All right. Go ahead, Mike.
All right. Welcome to Triple Block Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about growing the game and just different teams we think in Division III that could be adding men's volleyball teams in different situations, and just have a conversation about the whole thing. Today, I guess we're going to start off with the big. Our first question is, who should add men's volleyball versus who will actually add men's volleyball?
One of the big schools I've had in mind as you look at the landscape of the Division III game and the world of men's volleyball is I would love to see Rochester Institute of Technology look into the addition of a men's program with a strong background as an engineering school. In addition to their location in a volleyball hotbed of Rochester, I think they would be able to come in and compete with both Wentworth and Stevens Tech for the East Coast kids who are looking for engineering, as well as bringing kids from the West Coast to their volleyball-rich area and be able to build a relatively competitive program at the Division III level in a short amount of time.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I think there's definitely a lot there as far as RIT goes. I mean, that's kind of where I'm from, and I'm living in the area, and I think it would definitely attract a ton of local kids. I mean, already their club. You could go on campus today and put together a team of kids that are going to be a competitive team. Probably not a ranked team, but you could put together a team that's probably going to go about 500, depending on what conference they're in. Just with kids that are already there, not recruiting at all. It would definitely be a strong choice. Now, the question for them is, why should they bother? As far as their end, the school that's doing really well, and there's not really an incentive to do it other than they could be a pretty good team. And they're not that they dislike sports. They're not a school that pushes athletics all the time. They're a very high academic school that really focuses on, they sell the academics, and the careers are going to come after it. So it's a matter of if someone there in charge really, if that's what they want, they could definitely do it. But the question is, do they want that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that sounds good. I mean, on the flip side of the world and out in the other coast, you have California Lutheran, who's kind of sitting there alone, and they kind of added with the idea that the rest of their conference would go. And so, my vote would be for like the SCIAC out there with Claremont and Pomona Fitzer and Laverne and Pacific Lutheran. That would be a good add. It would be a natural fit in the Southern California area. You've got kids out there that are already going there that would make them extremely competitive going through. And then you'd always have a California team represented in the NCAA tournament because they would have their AQ.
Yeah, with the high level being played out there, it would be wonderful to see those schools jump on board and be able to compete. But the tough part of that is balancing out the rest of your schedule and being able to put together a quality non-conference schedule full of other Division IIIs, where more or less you're banking on the hopes that a couple different teams are going to want to take a West Coast trip at some point during the year, or you as a program and school need to budget out the opportunity to travel to the Midwest or East Coast for a 4 or 5 day period and play, 7 or 8 matches in that time period. And I've done that as an athlete, and I'm trying to avoid doing it as a coach because I've seen the toll it can take on a team mentally and physically, just grinding away and playing at such a high level over that amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing to look at, though, when you look at the women's side and the West region as a whole, they're doing that anyway because they have to. There's so little amount of teams. There's 4 conferences technically in the West region. They have to come. They have to come East. They have to come Midwest. It always hurts in the tournament for the women's side when the Pacific Northwest Conference team doesn't go anywhere. They always get stuck against an Emory or WashU in the first round, and it's never a good thing.
Yeah, like you guys been saying, the geography of the whole situation is such a big thing. I think the travel and for a D3 team, you're not going to have a team that's going to be traveling all over the place, and it lowers the quality of play and it lowers the collegiate experience for a lot of just for the athletes by having to go all over the place and travel a ton. And here, looking at a list of I would agree D3 in California would be great to add. It's weird. It's not great for the D3 sport right now that there's such a little representation of the strongest hotbed of volleyball players, which is California. But looking at it right now, like in the state of California, D3 institutions, there are about a handful, about a little less than 10 in the entire state. So it would be great to have something out there, but probably the most realistic one that was already brought up be something, yeah, like Cal Lu. That would be great, a great one. Maybe California Institute of Technology. That would be a decent one as well. But it would be a big thing if they could add enough to get a conference and an AQ by themselves, like or add some sort of other West Coast D3s on top of the whole thing.
To piggyback off Brendan's idea of high academics without losing the whole geography of what we're looking at, an awesome ad for an entire conference, but would be more of a dream scenario, would be if the NESCAC schools, Tufts, Middlebury, Williams, decided to step forward and really capitalize on the Northeast boom of volleyball while still providing the unbelievable academic experience they're able to do for their student athletes. I mean, we look at Division III soccer. They swept on the men and women's side, with the women's side being an all NESCAC final. If we can look at their rosters and see they're able to recruit kids from a national pool, whether it be California, Texas, and their own region, if they were able to do the same for volleyball, we're looking at immediately competitive programs without the geography challenges that you look at with the California high academics that we just discussed.
Yeah, so I'd agree that'd be a great dream scenario. And that kind of goes back to our original question of who should add versus who will add. Those schools would be great. All the high academic schools would be great, but when you're a high academic school, it seems to me that those schools aren't motivated to add a sport like men's volleyball right now as much as some other schools that are struggling a little bit more. Not that, but it seems like who is adding right now are teams that are really schools that are pushing for enrollment. Not that they're bad schools, but good schools that just want to get their name out there somehow and find another way to get people on campus. It turns more into a money thing of getting money out, of just getting higher enrollment and all those kind of things, which is a good thing to be doing. That's kind of more of who will be adding, I think, because they're the ones that are financially incentivized to do it. That would be the thing, is let's find a way to make this be incentivize these schools that have names already, people know what they are, like Tufts, like you brought up, to kind of get into the situation and get into the game a little bit more and just kind of show them what's in the area, what they could be doing with minimal effort with a good return.
Absolutely. So many of these decisions right now are enrollment driven. So I think the big thing you would have to sell these schools on, and they would see it once the opportunity arises, is the culture and excitement that men's volleyball can bring to a campus. Obviously, those schools aren't struggling to fill beds or get their name out there. But if it's another opportunity to provide students with a great experience and continue to expand the culture of your campus within a student population and an athletic experience, I think that it would be overall enriching for the institution, even though they might not see it that way without, a trial run or having someone come in and sit down to talk the numbers and the effect that they've been able to do at some of these other schools.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that could lead into even another thing we could talk about here is what can be done for volleyball in those regions to help in different regions to help bring it up at whether it's at the collegiate level or even at the grassroots level, like the younger kids. That's gonna a school isn't just gonna add if you're not seeing that culture around men's volleyball. What can be done, and that culture is going to be shown by, it's not going to be an athletic director or a dean of a school going around and just happening to find into it. It's going to have to come from us, people that are either the three of us that are on here or people who are crazy enough to be listening. They're the people that are going to actually care enough about the sport that are going to want to push it. I think it's going to come a lot from supporting local teams, whether it's high school teams or the other local college teams. Like if we're in the Boston area, having MIT have good crowds, having Emmanuel College, Endicott having really good crowds, having a big fun atmosphere or wherever it is. Like if we can get a big strong thing, I think like you brought up earlier, like out in Rochester, we have Nazareth and St. John Fisher. If those two teams are natural rivals, they're new programs, and like with St. John Fisher hosting Nazareth for the first time, if those games are really big and and like, they fill the gym, and there's a good chance that they will. I think that might inspire like an RIT or something like that in the local area to add men's volleyball, something like that, just to show, yeah, just to get that culture on campus, because that would really help incentivize those other high end academic schools to add it. What can the sport add? Like, well, it can add this amazing culture that we all know exists and we want to show off.
Well, I mean, I think you're really in the same situation of like, we're looking at the chicken and the egg here. If you look at certain states like Iowa, right, all their colleges added first, and then all of a sudden we've got kids enrolling in schools in Iowa. You go the other way and say, okay, well, we're going to sanction the sport and all these states and all these colleges are going to add. Well, that doesn't necessarily follow either. So it just really, a lot of it just depends on the people working on it. It's got not a whole lot to do with necessarily, oh, well, there's 1,000 kids in the gym down the street watching men's volleyball. If I'm Tufts, I don't really care what's going on at Emerson. It really doesn't bother me. What lacrosse did to grow their sport the way they did was have kids, when they turned down their offers to schools, tell the admissions departments that it was because they don't have that sport. Whether or not they were going to go there in the first place, it didn't really matter. They produced a letter that said, hey, we're not coming to your school because you don't have men's volleyball. And that's what, you're losing out on quality level kids that are getting into your institution. That's what an MIT or a Vassar, and those schools obviously have men's volleyball, but that's what those schools are looking at. They're going, hey, we're losing this kid that we admitted who has the right, diversity, who has the right this, who has the right level of, intelligence, things like that. We're going to lose out on that kid because we don't have this one thing that they want to do. And if they see it 10 and 12 times, then you're going to start changing. The admissions directors are going to start going up the scale to the presidents and things like that, who really matter in making those decisions. But like I said, like Iowa's probably never going to add men's volleyball or boys volleyball as a high school sport. They're just not ready for it. It's not really being pushed there as far as all these other new high school club associations that are coming up. There's no one out there organizing that in the right way. Whereas, you have Kentucky right now, Kansas City, and the club directors at Mavs and Louisville Fury really pushing forward with it. Michigan just re-upped their boys volleyball as a possibility of a state sport, but you already have 5 schools in that state, colleges that had men's volleyball before and aren't recruiting kids from Michigan, or are recruiting kids from Michigan, just turning them into volleyball players as they get older. So the reality is it's the person on the ground, and then on top of it, it's understanding the market around it and really going at it in that direction, not necessarily worrying about how popular it is necessarily.
To look at that equation from the other perspective and say, Misericordia is obviously in Pennsylvania, which is a huge men's volleyball spot. But the particular region of the state that we're in is not a big men's volleyball feeder. But when some of the high schools see that the top level kids off of their teams are having the opportunity to go play in college and continue their careers, is creating a drive and an uptick in the participation of the sport at the high school level. And more importantly, the quality of the athlete who is signing up for men's volleyball now as an 8th and 9th grader instead of an 11th and 12th grader who's looking at it at the end of their high school career. So one thing we've really tried to be cognizant of in this area with the new boom, we now have 3 colleges within a 15-minute radius who've all added since 2017. We're saying, hey, what can we do to give back in this area and, help not just cultivate the sport, but help create a fertile recruiting ground for us here in our backyard. So we've been instituting high school summer camps, single training days. We've invited coaches to come up and check out one of our college practices in person, because anything we can do to help popularize the sport at all is obviously a step in the right direction. But specifically, we're trying to make it an attractive option for these high school kids to look at it and say, hey, I can continue this sport into college, where that always was an option. During my recruitment period, there were 72 Division III men's volleyball schools. So that's a really narrow look when you compare it to basketball, soccer, football, baseball, some of the more traditional sports, I think presenting it as an option and them seeing whether it be friends or kids they've known or teammates, not just playing but excelling at the college level, has made a big difference in the growth and the quality of athlete we're seeing step out for high school volleyball.
Mike.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I agree with especially like as I think a good point that like Brendan had before about like what is making like what would incentivize these schools to add when he talks about like kids actively saying in their admissions, like when they turn down admissions department saying I'm not going to this school because it doesn't have my sport. It doesn't have men's volleyball. Like I would come if it did, but it doesn't. So that'd be a kind of an interesting thing that just an interesting thing to keep thinking of as we're kind of going around and talking with younger kids. Like, I mean, I'm sure all of us see kids all the time. Like what do you talk? Like, make sure you're talking about your sport as part of what you are. Don't just kind of go with the flow, but make sure not saying complain or boycott certain schools or anything like that, but make it known that's what you want. Because that's kind of Brendan's right. That is where it's going to come from, is they listen to these kids saying they want this or they don't want this or whatever it is. That's where people really are going to listen. They're not going to, it's much more than they're going to listen to, seeing a good game down the street. And as well, it's inspiring like kids to keep playing at the youth level. I mean, I've been doing some work lately trying to get a little bit more of the city school districts to play volleyball, not just suburban kids. Just trying to expand the game that way and just reach out to another community. But yeah, any way we can get more guys playing the sport at any level is going to be a good thing.
Yeah, and that's kind of where if you can combine the idea that Brendan brought forward of people going to these admissions offices and saying, hey, we want volleyball, it's partially our duty to get kids, high school kids right now in the mindset of thinking, hey, I want to be involved in this sport past the level I'm currently playing, and perhaps not at a club, but at a very competitive Division III school, because I want that small school experience. And we need to be able to create more of those kids, because they're not just going to pop up on their own. We've got to create that desire for them to want to continue to play regardless of where they're at, so that when they're turning down a school that might be of a higher regard or better prestige, and they're asking, hey, why are you going to school X instead of school Y? And that's how you get some of those bigger, more prestigious schools on board once they start losing those kids. And I believe, like I said, that starts at creating the kids and these potential students who want to continue down that path.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing, the other side of it is like out here in the Midwest, it really is, hey, this school added, they got a bump for 25 kids in admission, then the school down the road goes, oh, we could do that too. And so that's what's incentivizing. So it also comes a lot from what the goals of the university are, of what are they going to add or not. So that's really it. So I mean, I think going back to who's going to add versus who will add. Right now, it's going to be who sees it as important to add. Why? Because they prize their athletics, or because they, like Mike said, are enrollment driven. And what can we do at the local level to drive that is kind of figure out who's in what situation, and kind of figure out like, hey, this school might be struggling for students. It might be time to send an email and say, hey, why don't you think about adding men's volleyball? You could probably have 10 to 15 kids that are high caliber, high academic, that kind of thing, and you're not laying out a ton of money for it.
Exactly. And I think it makes a ton of sense. And to be completely honest, part of what helped us get started here was the want and need to continue the enrollment for specifically male-driven students at a school that specialized in the health science. That was one half of it. And the other half was the keeping up with the Joneses idea. Wilkes, who's right down the street, gets started. We announced, and now we're started. Kings announces they're coming for 2020, and there's a bunch of stuff going around the rumor mill that Scranton might be next a little bit further down the line. So sometimes jump or just the pressure of a school similar to you making that decision, whether it be geographically or recruitment based, they want to be able to look and say, hey, our neighbor down the street has that shiny new toy. We want to have that same one to be able to utilize. And hopefully, if men's volleyball keeps growing the way it will, it'll incentivize more schools for one reason or another to try to keep up with each other through admissions or just through pure pride of saying we have this on our campus, we're offering it, and we're succeeding at a high level.
Yeah, just that kind of pressure of having people do it for like different reasons, but competing, keeping up. Whether it's what's nice about volleyball is, I mean, it tends to be academically, as far as athletics go, it tends to be one of the higher performing sports academically. As well, so it's a good thing you can keep throwing it out there. Like, we're adding 15 above average athletes to our campus, and even like you guys in Misericordia and the Pennsylvania area have like a good amount of like teams all around that have been adding. Like, it could be a good thing. I mean, in New York, there's been New Paltz been the only state school for a long time. If one or two more add, there's a good chance that they start seeing like, oh, if SUNY Brockport adds, and then they start taking some of these high caliber student athletes, not even so much the athletics part, but they start taking like these like high quality students that are also well-rounded or playing athletics. Someone like a Geneseo, who's been one of the higher academic state schools, might see that and say, oh, if Brockport's taking these kids, we got to keep up with the Joneses and add a program there. I mean, that could kind of spread to an entire conference pretty quickly and easily.
Yeah, I mean, more or less, that's what happened with us in the Middle Atlantic Conference. At first, it was Stevenson alone once they made the move over, and then it was tabbed as an emerging sport. Arcadia and Alvernia jumped on board, Wilkes a little bit later, but in that same year. And now we're up to, it'll be 10 schools in 2020 with Stevens coming over. So it's grown a lot. And that whole idea of the peer pressure, I think, might be a way down the line, whether it be a SUNYAC or whether it be, a different conference with the Atlantic East just getting formed. You have Marymount, who's had a lot of success on the men's side, and Newman with a program as well. Maybe they can get a Cabrini or a Marywood on board, because Marywood would have the combination of both geography and new conference. It's just all about the schools, the areas, the commissioners making a concerted effort to see if it's the right fit for them, and then moving forward from there.
Yeah, so I guess it kind of brings us to, like, if we're looking at a kind of a dream world where we can start adding like men's volleyball teams. I'm not even saying it's particular teams, but let's say even like different, like, what could we do with conferences and who could we grab from the region geographically? Like, what would be kind of an ideal world now to get us up to, like, let's say, I think for us, we don't want to be where the women are, but we'd want to be about a 32 team tournament. Would be a pretty good number at the end of the year, which would take us to be about 150-ish teams somewhere in the country. So adding a handful of conferences. So we kind of already brought up a couple times already, like the SUNYAC teams. Like, I think that'd be a really strong add, just because there's so many high school programs in the state. But what about, like, what do you guys think? What else? What are like conferences? If you're adding true conference, or you're kind of cherry picking to make your own volleyball specific conference, like, what do you think would be a good place to start, or a dream place to start?
I mentioned a little bit earlier, the NESCACs would be an awesome add, just geographically, and being able to fill out the North region with some really, really talented kids up there in the New England area, getting them to the New England area, wherever they happen to be from. And then the other half of things, it would not be, the best geographically, but school-wise, if some of the Centennials that have had a lot of success recently on the women's side were able to come together and say, hey, let's do the same for the men. A Swarthmore, a Johns Hopkins, a McDaniel. It's been shown that teams in that area can have success, and you're able to bring in kids at those schools from a bunch of different areas of the country, whether it be California or Texas, which has been growing like crazy for boys volleyball. I think the Centennial would be a great add for a pure conference without having to cherry pick too much. But we also have no base for for any of the schools within the conference already sponsoring the sport.
I mean, I agree with that. I think one of the big things that you should look at is look at the conglomerate conferences, look at the UBC, look at the CVC, and see where those teams are coming from and what makes sense to add from those conferences. I mean, if you look at the AMCC right now, you have Teal and Geneva. They're in the pack. Those are a lot of schools in the Ohio, Western PA region. That would make a lot of sense to add. The OAC is hosting the D3 National Championship in 2022, and only Mount Union is on board right now, and they have a conference. The Heartland Conference, Mount St. Joe is the only one in. Probably looking to add right now, but it's a lot of schools in Southern Indiana, Transylvania, and Kentucky, and then Mount St. Joe in Ohio. So kind of connecting the Midwest conferences, the NAC, CCIW just voted to support men's volleyball. And then even on the other side in New Jersey, you have quite a few schools in the NJAC, and they aren't sponsoring it. Most of their schools are still participating in the CVC. Get a Rowan on board, get somebody like that on board that can complete that conference there with, Jersey City, Kane, Rutgers, etc. So, I mean, I think filling in some of the gaps for the conglomerate conferences will help a lot as well.
So these teams that we're hopefully adding, like, what do we think would be? What are some things to keep in mind when it comes to starting a new program? We've already talked about geography. That's really very clear about like just having teams nearby so you're not spending your entire budget on travel. But what else should teams be keeping in mind when it comes to starting a new program? What are the ins and the outs of that process?
The most important thing for us when we were starting our program over the last 2 years and now heading into our second year is being very clear in the recruiting trail of the culture that you are not just trying to set, but trying to create. It's such a unique opportunity to be writing the entire history of your program when you are at the forefront of this. So you need to be able to get kids who are on board and bought into what the ideas are, because as great of a recruiter or as much as you can be a coach who's getting recruits on campus, it's the kids that are involved with the program that are going to sell it at the end of the day. And they're what the administrators are looking at and seeing as an on-court product or an on-campus product with community service events, or on the other half of the coin, any sort of trouble that they're stirring up. So you really need to be clear and concise with what you want to accomplish as a program. Could it be filling beds? Could it be making an immediate competitive impact? Could it be all of those things? Could it be just being a stable program that isn't going to create any issues? But you need to find the kids who are going to fit that bill and help you create the culture right off the bat.
I mean, I think the big thing that, to reiterate is that the administrations need to be on board with funding the program at the proper level. That includes equipment, travel, things like that. But as we want to make it easier by building these conferences in their local areas and their footprints where they're not spending, where that makes their travel costs predictable. But there are teams out there that are, having their head coach double as the, game manager or the student success advisor or something to that effect, and only wanting that volleyball coach for about 20%, 30% of their time of their full-time job. So it's making the investment in the sport as well, to give them, the responsibilities where they don't have to do 9 other things on campus, or they don't have a budget that basically gets them to home matches and conference matches only. So I think that's the biggest thing for administrations and schools to keep in mind is if you are going to add, yes, it is relatively inexpensive, but you do have to invest the money in it.
Right. It can definitely sour a taste of coaches and students if it's kind of being thrown together as clearly like a tuition money grab. So you definitely want to make sure that if you're like you guys have help start programs, be on the same page with the administration and say what's your goal, what's this, and then be upfront with the kids that are coming in, because again, they're really the ones that suffer if we aren't upfront with what's happening. If we're here, we're just here to compete and just kind of hang out and play, be a kind of a high-end intramural team, then that we got to be honest with it. Hopefully it's more than that. It seems like more and more of these programs are getting to that higher level where we're going to treat this as a real thing. Like we treat it like we treat every other team on our campus, which is that's ideal, where everyone should be. We're treating like all these men's volleyball teams like what real teams like they are. And they should be funded appropriately so that the kids aren't super stressed out and they get into all these crazy travel nights and having to do all these other things all the other teams aren't having to do. And you have to have a level playing field going into it.
Absolutely. A supportive administration for any sport, but specifically for men's volleyball, where it can be such a new idea to a campus without an idea of what the culture is going to be like, because it's so different from the women's volleyball programs that are on the other side of campus or on the other half of it. Having them to be able to buy in and understand what is being created is a huge, huge piece, and makes life much easier when they understand and do buy into that level.
Yeah, I mean, all these things, they sound like good things to keep in mind when we're starting a program. There's so much to get into. I think unless any of you guys have anything else, last points you guys want to bring in or things you want to talk about, I think we have it's been a good night, and I think we should probably say goodbye.
The last thing that I will put out there is that I've been working with Vinny from Off the Block on the Division III preseason All-American poll. So hopefully that'll be coming out later this month. So just keep your eyes peeled. We had a great response from coaches across the country, helping us select the top 15 Division III men's volleyball student athletes who are returning. We got a great response, a great crop of kids, and it'll be cool to be able to help the exposure of our sport by getting a proper preseason All-American voting poll out there.
Great. Yeah, we'll have to push to get that, because that'd be a good thing for us to talk about here some more as well. Just kind of get us a heads up on what we should all be looking at for the season, see who's keeping up with what their expectations are and who's exceeding those expectations.
Okay, I stopped.
Okay.
Yeah, I sent that stuff over to Vinny. I'm not sure when he's going to publish it or run it. But like I said, I pretty much did all the legwork on that. So if you guys want any of the data or anything from it, it was pretty interesting to see how it all played out. So if you're going to use it as a talking point, just let me know and I can get that stuff over to you guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Oh, Lord. No, so what's fucking everybody right now is this conference crap, and it's annoying.
What conference crap?
So CCIW just is leaving the MCVL at the end of the year. So that's Augustana, North Central, Carthage are leaving at the end of the year. They're taking Loras and Greenville with them. They're leaving.
Okay.
What's happening is they're leaving. Everyone's trying to leave Fontbonne out of it because they're too far away for everyone's travel.
So they're going to have to go through another 2-year waiting period, though, because they're associate members closing in on the CCIW, right?
Yeah, they know they're going to have to. We're keeping.
So Carthage has been ineligible for a automatic berth postseason bid, in that case, for 4 of the last 7 seasons they've participated in, with the formation of the MCVL and now with the CCIW bringing in associate members.
I don't think the MCVL had to wait.
It had 2-year waiting period. They got an at-large one of the 2 years, but the other year they were left out.
I thought they got a dispensation from the NCAA for it.
They did not, because what happened was they had the one originally, and then when it split, they had lost or something along those lines, because
it was CVC, and they split with the CVC to form the MCVL.
Yeah, and then didn't the MCVL split again in terms of they wanted to run it as 2 sides?
No, the NAC added. So that was the thing. The NAC added. So the MCVL was all the Chicagoland schools that aren't in the NAC, that were in the NAC. And so the NAC added, but that's an all-sport conference, so they didn't have to wait. So the MCVL had their bid.
So the year that Carthage went, they were 26-1, and I don't think they got. This was the first MCVL year. I don't think it was an automatic bid. I think they got an at-large because they were 27-1 at the time, but I could be wrong. I'm trying to look into their archives and see if it has anything there. But, I mean, they're such a brand name school for men's volleyball. It won't matter, but it just feels like such a hit to the kids to be able to say again, like, hey, we're pulling you out of an opportunity for an automatic bid after we just waited to get it back.
Well, the thing is that, you know, I mean, with this year, with Hunter being flown out to the Midwest, it's going to make a big difference. It's going to make the difference of they don't fly Hunter out and they just fill it in with the at-large from the CCIW, and it's going to be the champion, so it's not going to matter. And what's going to end up happening is it's whatever conference of the three is going to be the strongest is going to host, and then the other two are just going there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is what it is, but. I mean, the other thing is we're going east. We're coming east and grabbing Mount Union because they're independent this year. But no one wants Fontbonne. Like, essentially, at the end of the day, no one wants Fontbonne in their conference because they're in the middle of friggin' nowhere.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, no one's going to. Why would you voluntarily agree to that?
Right. Well, Ryan's being a dickhead. But Ryan's being, we're trying to make a schedule where it's okay, and Ryan's just being a dickhead, so.
They were great when they came out to us. I had no issues, which is surprising to hear. Yeah, they came out and played us at our place.
Yeah, because they know they have to travel. They have no choice, and they're choosing to keep this program. They know. I mean, they've always had to travel because before in the CBC, it was only Carthage and Fontbonne.
Yeah. So,
like, they have no problem with it. It's getting them. St. Louis schools are never going to add. So, you know, Heartland and St. Louis are probably never going to add, so it really doesn't matter. Your OAX, you're probably your next conference because they're hosting the friggin' championship, and they're supposed to have all been in by 2022.
So, Brendan, just to clear it up, the MCVL had an at-large bid for the first time in 2017, so they still did the 2-year waiting period in 15 and 16. I think Carthage at-larged in 2016, and I think they were left out in 2015, if I remember correctly. Right. But I could be wrong. But I know they did have the 2-year waiting period. But like I said, it doesn't matter when you're that school.
Right.
Anything else you guys need from me?
Nope.
No, I think we're all pretty good.
My lady's at home waiting with dinner, and if I make her wait any longer, she might not be waiting there anymore.
That's fair.
All right. Appreciate you guys having me on. Anytime you need someone, don't hesitate to shoot a text or give me a call.
Sounds good.
Good talking to you.
Thanks, fellas.
See ya. Mike.
Bye.
Mike.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Jesus.
What?
We gotta figure. That's a long one.
Yeah, there's a lot of dead time in there, but yeah, 44 minutes is a long time.
Yeah.
I got to put it. I'll get like a clock or something and just kind of throw it behind me so we can all see it, just to kind of keep an eye on it.
I can see the time on the thing, but
I think just for myself, do that, or next time I should plan out like, all right, this should be 10 minutes. This should be whatever. Just for the sake of it. If we're over, then no, we got to cut something else out.
Yeah, I mean, I think
44, 30, 35 is probably a good, like, you're probably 35 is probably where we want to be.
Yeah, I was at 40. We're at 45, but that includes the beginning when I cut it off at some point. So I don't think we're at full 45. I think we're probably around 35, 40.
There's probably a minute of dead air in there of me just not responding to things.
I can see some
like that.
Yeah, no, I can see some dead time.
But yeah, I mean, put it up. I mean, I don't think anyone's gonna. I mean, we'll get something up, and then we can just keep tweaking it and figuring out what works, what doesn't work.
Yeah, I think that works a little bit better.
Yeah, just reading off stats. I think it might be. Yeah, for the previews, maybe doing something like, I don't know. I don't want to make you like pick. I want to, you know what I mean? I don't want to make you pick things. That'd be a little bit. You know what I mean? Like picking who's gonna win something, or you don't want to do that kind of stuff, right? That'd be more interesting to talk about things from that aspect. Like, what do we think? Like, how's it gonna match up? Like, I don't know. I think that there's ways to make it the conversation a little more fun in that way, or maybe like who's gonna make all conferences, or I don't know. But I got some sort of questions opposed to just let's talk about. Let's ask this question about the UVC. Let's not just talk about every team's stats from last year.
Right. I mean, I think the big thing is like with the conferences and with the with the UVC and like the previews, I mean they're just boring, but at the same time, like you could probably just get on and read,
Yeah, it's you can literally it's much easier and less painful to read it. Just look it up and say, oh, this team came in first and they came in this and they beat this. It's like it takes 11 seconds if you really want to do it.
Right.
So yeah, definitely we should probably make it a little more a little more conversational. Like, yeah, I guess maybe just make categories like team most likely to win. We could talk about that for a second, I guess. That way, I mean, if you're okay with that way it could. You don't have to pick a winner. It's like teams most likely to win could be 3 teams, and you're not really going to offend anybody if you don't say that Sage is going to win, not going to win the UBC.
Right.
That can give a little bit of wiggle room in there, or we can at least just talk about it from that sense, and you can still bring up players and stuff along those lines, and bring up the records. But if it's a little more entertaining, or teams that are, who's on a bubble, like who do you think is going to be on a bubble their playoffs, and those kind of things.
Yeah.
I'm
literally getting text recruits as that's what all the dinging was going on. Like someone's texting me recruit names.
Oh, I don't miss that. My phone doesn't go off nearly as much. My phone used to go off like if it went like 10 minutes without getting a text from someone, it was crazy. And now I get no text and it's great. I love it.
Well, but the thing is that like it's on my laptop, so it's going to come through regardless of whether my phone does it or not.
You can't just like silence that app. Is it a MacBook or something else?
Yeah, it's a MacBook.
I think you can turn off notifications on that, right?
I can turn off notifications. I don't know. I don't. Whatever.
It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I'm over it.
Cool. So what we do though is we could probably do multiple division conferences at once, and as we go forward. And I'll have to, and we can do a Liberto one too, where we can. It might even be good to do next. Is do a Liberto one, just like what to make it like what do you guys look at, like that kind of stuff, like that conversation. Like what do you?
I mean, I think criteria. I think we talk about criteria. I think we talk about regionalization, and I think that we really talk about what it takes to add a line to the bracket, like all that little stuff that people don't think about. But I mean, I don't think we can ask him like how they pick the teams. It's
right. Well, what factors go into it? Not saying
it's just a formula. I mean, the one thing we have to, with the California schools, the one thing everyone has to remember is that playing a D3 school doesn't hurt your RPI.
It doesn't?
No. So I was talking to Vinny the other night. He said, yeah, that's why Quincy has the 6th highest RPI in the country, because they play all these NAIA and D3 schools, and it's not factored in whether they win or lose because they just don't count.
Oh, huh?
They're 6th
Is that
highest
a recent thing?
Literally just playing the MIVA schools.
Is that a recent thing?
I don't know, but that's what Ben said. Like that's how the criteria works.
I was pretty sure we took a huge hit for losing to New Paltz 2 years ago.
I don't know,
but I don't know. I could be wrong. I trust Vinny more than myself. So when it comes to that kind of stuff, but it's something to look into. But yeah, I think with Dan, I'll definitely have to send us. I'll make a chain, just a chain email. We can just because I think he doesn't want to say anything he can't say. So as long as we kind of just get on the same page of what he can't, like clearly he's not going to say that. Well, we're not going to put this team in because it's cost related. We're not going to fly this team across the country. Like clearly he can't say that clearly. I think he just wants to prepare a little bit too. So where the conversation's going to go.
Well, I was going to say just send him a list of questions and then say what can you say and what can't you say.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
and that'll be
sounds good. Let's try and shoot. I think that'd be a good next one actually. Let's the Dan Liberto episode.
Okay, sounds like fun.
Cool. We'll have to. Is there like a microphone filter that picks up big tongues?
Yes.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm gonna run. I'll talk to you later.
Sounds good. Bye.
Bye.